I was born in Glasgow in 1919, very much a towny person, and was brought up. I was at school in Glasgow and was brought up there. So I'm a real dyed-in-the-wool Glaswegian. Well, I remember we lived for a long time in a flat at the top story of a typical Glasgow red sandstone tenement. I couldn't have been further from the countryside, but we did go to Aberfoyle on holidays, and that gave me my first taste of the countryside, and I was bewitched by it altogether. Just the ability to run wild in the woods behind where we stayed in the village. That was a wonderful experience, and I think that's what gave me my first experience of the countryside that we have, and I thought it was pretty wonderful. Well, in 1949, there was a board held for appointment of district officers, and I succeeded in getting that appointment. And I was told that I would go to work in the South Scotland Conservancy and would be based at Lagham. But before that, I had to go and spend 6 months with a senior district officer who would show me the ropes. Well, that was I went to Lockerbie and worked with Bill Sutherland there. It was a very happy time. And then I went to Lagham to take over at the beginning of 1950 to settle in my own district. Forests are subject to being blown down by wind, if there really are strong winds, and we seem to get series of strong winds in Britain from time to time, in fact fairly regularly. There had been a very big one in 1953, mainly in Aberdeenshire, and then in January 1968 there was a massive storm in the west of Scotland and in Glasgow. It was known from the roofs of Glasgow were damaged for a very long time. And my house that I just got on the outskirts of Glasgow was no exception. So we had this enormous area which was blown flat. I remember with great clarity standing in a hill and seeing in front of me an entire plantation of perhaps 100 acres, with every tree lying flat on the ground in exactly one after the other, all in the same direction, of course. Oh, it was a terrible sight indeed. So the great problem we had was of clearing all that timber up before it began to rot. We reckon we had 2 years to do it, and we set about doing that. It was of course the timber trade and the private estates were just as affected, of course, as the Forestry Commission. So we all combined together to find out how best we were going to clear this disaster. It's so tragic to see a lovely plantation which you had seen standing up and the trees swaying gently in the breeze, and now to see them all flat on their faces. Yes. Well, the first thing about forestry and me is that I chose it to be my profession, and I think it was a very wise choice for a young man to make. I have nothing in my family that approaches anything like that, so it was something quite new. My motivation, I think, in forestry has always been this wonderful countryside in which we live, and that's a great privilege. And it's a privilege I don't think we appreciate enough. Now, forestry plays its part in this countryside. Trees and woods, big forests, small forests, clumps of trees. They're all part of this wonderful countryside that we have. But I believe very much that the countryside must be a living countryside. It must be a place where people live and work, not only enjoy it, but find employment there. So I think forestry can play a very big part in providing employment in this countryside of ours. I like to think of the countryside with all its wonderful wildlife as being just part of all that we have and enjoy, and the privilege that we have of living in it. Forestry can enhance the wildlife potential, I'm quite sure.